We're back, and we'll be joined momentarily with the great Rod Martin. But before we do, I want to give you a little context for one of the topics that we'll be discussing, which is the state of play in our relationship with China. Overshadowed by news yesterday of progress by the Trump team in securing more reciprocal trade arrangements with the Chinese Communist Party, were reports that two top Wall Street denizens were doubling down on the CCP's wildly unreciprocated access to our capital markets. At issue is fundraising that Jamie Dimon's J.P. Morgan and Brian Moynihan's Bank of America are determined to do for what the Pentagon has determined is a Chinese military company operating in the United States. Known as CATL, the conglomerate makes electric batteries for consumer vehicles. Its batteries also are making the Chinese Communist Party's submarines more lethal. Congressman John Molinar, the chairman of the CCP Select Committee in the House of Representatives, has issued a demand for extensive documents from these two companies if they do not withdraw from this deal. It's high time that they get that, and also the public approbation that they deserve for aiding and abetting, indeed underwriting, our mortal enemy. So let's talk about all that with our friend and colleague Rod Martin. He is, of course, a man who is, I call him a free-range intellect with deep experience in business, investing. He was one of the PayPal mafia members early on and is these days the chairman, I'm proud to say, of our very own Institute for the American Future. We are privileged to consult with him pretty much every week, and delighted to do so now. Rod Martin, welcome back. It's good to have you with us.
Good to be here.
So, you have written at your own blog at rodmartin.org. It's called the Rod Martin Report. It's required reading, really. It's an extraordinarily rich resource online. That China has blinked in this standoff with the President of the United States over trade. I want you to talk a little bit about where that all stands, but I'd also like your thoughts on whether we are accommodating, certainly Wall Street is enabling, behavior that may overshadow, in some respects at least, what's being done, if anything, on the trade side.
Well, of course China did, and of course Wall Street is. I mean, that's been
Both
the
can be
pattern
true.
now for decades. We're busily selling the communists the rope with which they mean to hang us, and we've done that for a very long time. Yeah. But on the China
I'm
side,
fond of pointing out, Rod, we're actually financing the purchase of the rope that we're buying for them as well.
Yes, it's on an installment plan with Sears or something. It's ridiculous. Yes. But as far as China, look, Donald Trump always understood the calculus here in a way that our foreign policy establishment clearly does not. And it's just really simple. America is the largest marketplace on earth, and China has an export-driven economy. You know, there's maybe not as much as some of our other friends like Germany, where 48% of their economy is exports. But still, China can't make it without the U.S. China absolutely would go into a depression if they were cut off from the U.S. market. So they had to give ground, and they did. And if you look at the deal, we have maintained 30% tariffs on Chinese imports. They have cut theirs to 10%. And there's a host of enforcement mechanisms that are completely within Donald Trump's control. So we've got real breakthrough on intellectual property protections for the first time. We've got a bunch of good stuff in this deal, and we've got a 90-day clock on getting to a more permanent deal. And if the Chinese cheat, Trump's just going to nuke them, you know, but not in the literal nuclear war sense that the Chinese threaten us with routinely. You know, we don't have to. Honestly, we hold the hammer. And she has been making a lot of big talk about how, we're going to fight to the end on this. But no, he didn't. Going to Geneva, they sorted it out pretty quickly because the pain in China has just gotten too great. And this is honestly a huge Donald Trump win.
So, if all of that is true, and I hope it is, especially the idea that if they cheat, there will be very profound consequences, at least in this 90-day window, and whatever comes from that. I would just simply say they will cheat. That's what the Chinese Communist Party does. So we ought to be thinking hard about next steps, not only with respect to this nuking, as you put it, but also with respect to decoupling. And what we've been told by Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, who is doing the negotiation, is both sides have agreed we don't want to decouple. Where do you come down on this idea, given that these are people who are seeking to destroy this country one way or the other, the Chinese Communist Party, that is?
I think that's the right thing for Scott Bessent to say. I think that we need to have that formal position insofar as we need to incentivize China to do certain things that benefit the overall situation. But I think decoupling is a reality. It's inevitable. It's already in progress. It's not going to stop because, for example, Apple just moved all iPhone assembly destined for the United States from China to India. And lots of companies are moving out into Vietnam and Mexico and here. We've got $8 trillion of new investment lined up for U.S. manufacturing, most of it from overseas. And a lot of it destined for overseas, even if it originates here, like Apple's investment. And so this process can't really be reversed. And moreover, China really can't sustain its position with or without us. If they had complete free access to the U.S. market with no tariffs and no trade barriers of any sort, their demographic implosion is such that 20 years out, they're not going to be able to maintain their current industrial plant. Perhaps they could enhance it with robotics and AI, but their big problem is that robots don't buy cars and don't buy houses. So they are in a real world of hurt. And I would add that Germany is too. Their demographic picture is not a lot better than China's. South Korea has a big problem here. Taiwan does as well. And we've seen what a milder version of that did to Japan for the last 30 years. So this is non-trivial. And what Trump is doing is guaranteeing that China has a much rougher ride than they were getting away with on our dime.
For sure. Two things. Would you speak to our own demographic situation? I've been told that if it were not for all of the illegal aliens coming in and their birth rates being higher than ours, that we would be in serious trouble as well. Is that so? And is it an upside to what Joe Biden has done that offsets the obvious downsides?
Well, it turns out that a big rush of immigration, legal or illegal, actually suppresses birth rates because it drives up housing costs and lots of other issues that are negative for people having families. So no, nothing Joe Biden did was helpful. But yes, we do need immigration, and we're happy to have immigration that comes legally. That's perfectly fine. And that is a great benefit to the United States in an era in which our total fertility rate is significantly below replacement rate. But it's dramatically higher than China. China currently is sitting at about a 1.0 TFR. You need 2.1 for replacement. They are on track to stabilize around 0.8. At that rate, they would be at 25% of their current population by the end of the century. So they're really in a lot of trouble, and that process is already taking hold. And it shows up first in your working age population, which means this gets out of hand pretty quickly. They have too many old people to be supported by the workforce they have, and that's only getting worse over time. It's not an easy ship to turn around. And they did this to themselves with the one-child policy for 4 decades. And the effect of that isn't just going to go away.
Yeah. Not least because it's not, at the end of the day, just as a question of whether people want to have children. It's whether there's a woman with whom a man
Yes.
can have a child, having
There's
killed
also
off
that.
by some
And-
estimates 400 million or so of them.
And the net result of all of this is that they're especially dangerous in the next 10 to 15 years, because whatever they're going to grab, they need to grab it now. And to the degree that Trump is drying up their hard currency earnings, he is helping prevent that danger. So this is all being worked out in the White House from a geopolitical standpoint, and not merely isolated in a trade silo.
Well, this is where I wanted to go next with you, Rod Martin. Again, drawing on your expertise in the world of finance, among other things, is what is the position of the administration with respect to drying up the hard currency? Not just that they acquire through preferential trade arrangements, but that they acquire through preferential financial access to our capital markets arrangements as well. We'll be right back with more with Rod Martin on that and much more. Stay tuned. Rod, I wanted to hit a couple of things that you've been writing on as well, but first, just to tease this out a little bit further, in my commentary, I'm calling for opprobrium to be assigned to these masters of the universe like Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan and Brian Moynihan of Bank of America, who are essentially now saying to the President of the United States, we don't care that you have enunciated an America First investment policy that says it is the policy of the United States government that we're not going to continue to underwrite military arms of the Chinese Communist Party, companies or other investment vehicles and the like. These guys don't seem to care about the national security or the policy of our government. And while I get it that they're animated by greed, and I get it that apparently even the best interests of their clients is secondary to that, at some point they do, it seems to me, need to be held accountable in the kind of way that we argued for in this book, The Indictment, which our Committee on the Present Danger China, of which you are a member, helped put together, the subtitle of which is Prosecuting the Chinese Communist Party and Friends for Crimes Against America, China, and the World. And I believe that improving the lethality of Chinese submarines so they can better attack and kill American seamen and Marines is an indictable offense, at least in the court of public opinion. Your thoughts, sir?
At least in the court of public opinion. And of course, we have seen some progress in terms of actual indictments, thanks to our friend, the Attorney General of Missouri, who actually won a $24 billion judgment against China for its actions regarding COVID. And he's made very clear they intend to collect. They're going to attach every bit of Chinese property in the state of Missouri that they can get to. So, we need more of that, honestly. And I'm disappointed in Jamie Dimon, but what else is new? I mean, Jamie Dimon is frequently on the wrong side of pretty big things. And the truth is, I think a lot of our financial elite sees themselves as citizens of the world and not of any particular country. And their peers are global elites who are interested in an agenda that is frequently at cross purposes with the sovereignty of the United States. But the truth is, nations matter. when nations go to war, they don't think of themselves as citizens of the world. They think of themselves as citizens of their own country, and they blow up targets in each other's country. And this is just foolishness. We should not be subsidizing the development of a more lethal Chinese military, especially in this time. And I think that they will find that to be an unhelpful course for their own businesses.
Well, we're determined to make it so. And our Committee on the Present Danger China has been, I think, at the vanguard of that with
Yes.
the leadership of our friend Roger Robinson and your great help, of course. And it is one of the priorities of the Institute for the American Future to facilitate that. And if people are interested in helping, please donate to usfuture.org, and we will make sure that that money is going to worthy causes like ending the underwriting of our mortal enemy. Let me turn to a couple of other trade, excuse me, Rod, a couple of other these trade breakthroughs we've been told the president's efforts have produced, notably on the part of the United Kingdom. You've observed that this trade deal really, puts to an end the idea of walking back the exit of Great Britain from the European Union, which I think was a wonderful thing. Talk us through both what you think is promising about this deal in its own right, but also that knock-on effect.
It's just becoming unthinkable to go back. And the fact that Keir Starmer has brought that to pass is irony, certainly a happy, unexpected development. And it's not just the U.S. trade deal. It's the India trade deal, perhaps even more so, but certainly the combination of those and others coming. The U.K. is charting its own course on trade and economic development in a way that makes going under Brussels' thumb just unthinkable, and the costs overpowering. They're not going to do it. And they have a free trade deal with the EU. So there's not really anything the EU can give them other than just some kind of emotional attachment to the idea of European unification. I'm not sure there are that many people on the continent anymore who have that emotional attachment. And Britain certainly isn't going back. But there is another aspect to that deal that's particularly of note in light of the earlier conversation. The trade deal with the UK gives the United States an effective veto over Chinese investment in strategic industries in the UK, which is really quite extraordinary. It's reminiscent, certainly, of how we handled certain technologies during the Cold War, but didn't really see that one coming. And the Trump administration really insisted on it. Starmer agreed. That's unexpected and a really positive development. And I think you'll see that in each of these deals, there is something that puts the hurt on China.
Amazing. I had not heard that prior to your pointing it out, Rod. And if that were to become an element in these other deals as well, it would certainly be a big impediment to what the Chinese have done in response to Trump's trade war by trying to, say to everybody, no, we're a much more reliable partner, do business with us, we'll do deals with you, and so on. Doesn't seem like that's in the cards so much, does it? We have to take a very short break, Rod. We'll be right back with more. I wanted to talk with you about price management, shall we say, with respect to big pharma as well. Stay tuned. Be right back. Rod Martin's in the house. That makes this a better day here at Securing America. We're always delighted to have our friend and colleague. Rod, you had one closing thought on that last topic and what these deals with various countries, including this important one with Britain, mean perhaps not just for China's trade with those countries, but a lot of other things the Chinese have been up to. Quite malevolent things at that.
Yeah, if that deal term makes its way into the coming deals with the EU and with India and with Vietnam and with assorted other countries, as we're already seeing in Africa, the new deal we've got with DR Congo. What this does is it effectively gives Donald Trump the ability to kill the Belt and Road Initiative. Just kill it. And I don't know that it'll become a feature of all those other trade deals, but I think it's indicative of what's to come, that they made that a key feature, an unexpected key feature of the very first deal. And I think this is a real problem for Beijing.
And the Belt and Road Initiative, as our listeners know, is, of course, this, well, colonial build-out operation of the Chinese Communist Party, which, again, I personally believe is being financed, to some extent at least, by us, making possible all of these, what do they call them, payday loan arrangements that exploit the parties to them. The Chinese are past masters at that, I guess. But let me just ask, Murad, because there's one other thing that the president has just unveiled that also potentially has some profound implications for Americans, most obviously, but maybe the world. That is trying to ensure that we are not overpaying for the pharmaceutical drugs, products that we utilize in this country. Most favored nation status is what he's talking about. Walk us through that, if you would, and where you think this is likely to wind up.
Well, look, I'm a free trader, which is why I support the president's tariffs. He seems to be doing everything in his power to use our disproportionate market position to bring about lower trade barriers in foreign markets, end these lopsided deals we've had, and actually get to a point of free or at least freer trade between the United States and much of the world. And that's the impetus behind the prescription drug thing. It's a little different. It's a little novel. It's certainly creative. It does give me a certain amount of pause, but the aim is very clear. It's not that we're setting up price controls in the United States. It's that we're nuking everybody else's price controls. The European Union just says, well, we're only going to pay you this much for, Ozempic, Mounjaro, whatever. And Trump noted a friend had just bought his Ozempic, which was $1,300 for a month's supply in New York. He had just bought it for $80 in London. Well, what that means is the United States consumer is paying nearly 100% of the R&D costs for all medical breakthroughs, and the EU and Canada and the rest are freeloading. They're getting the benefit without paying the bill, and this policy is aimed at forcing them to start paying their fair share too. And I would add that it's kind of creative. I don't know if this will work, but what Trump's clearly aiming at is harnessing the pharmaceutical companies' lobbying arms to go work on these foreign governments to get them to a more reasonable price level. And that'll be fantastic for the American consumer one way or another. But if it works, it'll be really great for R&D going forward.
Yeah. So your expectation is the way this will work out, or it's your hope at least, is that prices will actually rise in Europe, and then they will be lower here but higher than they are in those countries now, because there would be a more fair apportionment of the costs of actually doing the expensive R&D, which we're more or less bearing alone at this point. Is that right?
Yes, we are. The United States consumer, remember, 4% of global population accounts for 75% of the pharmaceutical companies' profits. 75%. It's absolutely absurd. And 96% of the global population actually needs to step up and pay a little bit more so that Americans aren't footing the bill. We're not talking about rich Americans either. We're talking about the poor people who have inadequate insurance in many cases and are paying out of pocket for these expensive drugs that are cheap as dirt if you go to Mexico or Canada or France. And it's just wrong. And those governments are really proud of their socialized medicine schemes. Well, okay, step up and pay your fair share and provide it to your population free. That's fine. That's your plan.
If memory serves correctly, I think Donald Trump actually talked about pulling these executives from Big Pharma into his office and having a hard conversation with them, and that they all basically copped to the fact that they had been caught.
Oh, absolutely.
This kind of
And
game.
it's just easier for them to do it the way they've been doing it because this country does not take its own market position seriously and doesn't do anything to care for the American people. That's what America First is all about. It's looking at these lopsided, unfair, sometimes deals, sometimes just the way things have evolved, and rectifying them. And Trump's doing a great job here. I don't know if this initiative will work, but I'm hopeful about it. I know what they're aiming at.
Yeah, and worth a try. One other piece of this, which we won't have time to discuss today, but we'll have you back to do it on another occasion, Rod, is that the other thing those big pharma companies seem to be intent on is keeping us sick so that they will be able to sell more of these drugs to us. Expensive drugs, if possible, but just at least more of them, if not. And that, again, bespeaks a disinterest in, to say nothing of perhaps a contemptuous attitude towards the public health. And I fear that the connivance of the big pharma companies, Bill Gates among them, as well as the World Health Organization, which has got a new treaty coming down the pike here shortly, is going to be another assault on the public health. We've got to be alive to it and working against it. Rod Martin will do that with you at the Institute for the American Future. Praise God. Rod Martin Report at rodmartin.org. Also, check it out, folks. Come back to us soon. Come back to us next time, specifically, if you would, to go forth and multiply.